What's up agents, Epic Slayers here, welcome back to a brand new Division video. With the release of update 1.8.1 we got significant increases in the drop chances of classified gear across every activity in the game. But it has come to my attention that a lot of people still don't have 6 pieces of any classified gear that they want. So today I thought I'd bring this video out covering the best sort of PvP and PvE builds that do not require 6 pieces of gear. Hopefully you enjoy this one. If you do, drop a like, it really does help me out. And let's get into it. Alright agents, so I want to start off with my favourite assault rifle build for PvP that doesn't require 6 pieces of any classified gear. Now as you'll see here, we've got 2-piece Banshee, we've got 2-piece Predator, we've got 1 piece of high-end which is Savage, and then we've got our Ninja Backpack. And Ninja Backpack of course is very important. You are going to need a Ninja Backpack really if you want to get the benefits out of this build, and most builds actually. This will give us 3-piece Banshee, 3-piece Predator, so gives us the bonuses from those. Banshee giving us that 10% damage to targets out of cover, and then with Predator we are also getting the 8% assault rifle damage and SMG damage. Now what's important with this build, because I'm using an assault rifle which doesn't have any sort of native crit hit chance unlike SMGs, you're going to want to build this around crit as much as possible, hence why I'm using the Savage Gloves, giving me that extra 7% crit hit chance of targets out of cover. So when you're modding your assault rifle, and you can use any assault rifle really, but I'd recommend using the M4, it is the best assault rifle in the game, certainly for DPS in PvP that is. So as you can see with my red dot sight here, we've got crit chance, crit damage, headshot damage, we've got crit damage, crit chance, headshot damage on the vent break. Small grip, I've gone for optimal range, stability and crit hit damage. In that position it's kind of up to you, but as long as you're getting crit hit damage there, that's what's really important. And then lastly, again with the extended magazine, as long as you're getting crit chance here, and I would recommend getting crit damage over rate of fire with the M4, just because it's not needed that your M4 gets up to 900 RPM, 850 is absolutely fine, and that little bit of extra crit hit damage does help. Of course, you're getting the extra magazine size as well here, so you're going to want to build the M4 around crit chance as much as possible. Now with the gear itself, I'll quickly go over this. So as you can see here, I'm actually running skill haste as a major attribute, and I'm running skill haste as well on my holster here. Now most people would argue that I should be running exotic damage resilience as a major attribute here, but the only reason people argue that is because they say it works well against the Predator bleed, but 10% exotic damage resilience really does nothing against Predator bleed. What's really good against Predator bleed is bleed resistance, which you would get on your knee pads and on your backpack. Now it's been tested, bleed resistance does reduce the ticks from Predator 6-piece. It's not meant to, but it does, so I'd recommend always getting bleed resistance where you can. But the reason I've gone for skill haste here is because I'm going to want to get my pulse up as much as possible, because my pulse gives me that extra, as you can see here, 15% crit chance and then 7% crit damage, and that's really important, getting that extra crit chance, meaning my crit chance is actually pretty high with this when my pulse goes off. So if you go onto the mask, I've got crit chance here, and again, minor attribute here, I'd always go with bleed resistance. On the knee pads, we've gone for health, and again, as a minor attribute, I'd always get bleed resistance in there somewhere. Health's really important on the knee pads here. You're going to get the most health out of the knee pads, so if you're ever going to change where you have health, then you would just change it here, possibly. I've gone for health here. You could run stability, but I don't run stability here. The M4 is pretty stable, especially when you get used to it, so having health or crit hit damage here is probably the best option. Again, with the gloves, assault rifle damage, crit damage and crit chance, important. And I said earlier, we got skill haste as the major attribute on the holster. Now for mods wise, I've gone for firearms mods with skill haste, meaning that my character currently sits at 30% skill haste, which is pretty good on this character. It means I actually get my pulse back, I believe, every 36 seconds, which isn't too bad. It just means I'm always, my pulse is going to be at fairly often, so that I can, get the most out of the crit hit chance. Now if I go over to my character sheet here, you'll see that my crit hit chance is at 17.5%. But that doesn't include Savage, so I'm actually sitting at around 25% crit hit chance when I pulse. I'm actually sitting at around 40% crit hit chance with about 120% crit hit damage. So this build does a lot of damage, and this has to be my favourite PvP build with an assault rifle. You would change this up using an SMG, and that's what I get into now. Just before we get into the SMG, I will just quickly show you the skills and talents for this. So as I said, I'm running a concealed pulse, and I'm also running the immunizer box here just to give me that extra heal. And then for talents, and this is the reason why I don't run stability on the backpack, I just run steady hands here. If you don't need any stability at all, then I'd probably run precision, giving you that pulse. But I run steady hands, I run on the move. We've also got that strike back, reducing my skill cooldowns by 20%, which is quite significant. And then lastly, critical save. So let's move on to the SMG. Moving on to my favourite SMG build, and you'll be able to tell it looks fairly similar, but there are some changes that are worth noting here. So firstly, the weapon of choice. Now, I'm using the house because it is the best SMG in the game, but if you don't have the house, I would highly recommend using an AUG, because I think that's probably the second best in the game. Of course, you're going to be wanting to spec your house exactly like you'd spec an M4 into crit hit chance, crit hit damage, and then headshot damage. I'll just show you here what I've got. With the small grip, I've actually got reload speed on there, because that's quite important. 5% ain't going to make much difference, but it's worth having. And then for the extended magazine, we've got mag size, crit damage, and rate of fire. Rate of fire is actually pretty good on the house because it's very stable. So it's really easy to control. So I'd recommend having rate of fire on there. It just boosts that DPS. And I'd recommend having crit damage, not crit chance, just because you don't really need crit chance too much, because you already get 20% native, or if you're at maximum, I believe it's 23% native crit chance on SMGs anyway. So that's how I'd mod the SMG that you're going to be using of your choice. Now the build itself, as you will see, it is the same as in 2-piece Banshee, 2-piece Predator, but we are running in some final measure here. Now, because of Ninja Bike, I get the 2-piece set bonus giving me 25% exotic damage resilience. Unlike the M4, you're going to be wanting to get as close as possible with this particular build. You will find you're getting naded a lot, and that's the reason why I'd run exotic damage resilience instead of anything else, really. As you'll see on the armor here, all that I've changed is I've put exotic damage resilience on here instead of skill haste. Onto the mask, again, we've got exotic damage resilience on here as well. Onto the knee pads, we are still sticking with our health here because that's really important. And as I said, along with the M4 build, you're going to want to get bleed resistance here as well as a minor attribute. Onto the Ninja Bike backpack, I've run crit damage here. And I think that's important, but it's up to you. You can either run health or crit damage here. It's entirely up to you. Obviously, with the gloves here, we've got SMG damage, crit chance. And then with the final measure holster, the reason I've run crit chance here is because there really isn't anything else that I would recommend, apart from really reload speed. But I think crit chance here is probably your best option. So if I go over to my character sheet here, you'll see that my crit hit chance is currently at 35%. Now, modded wise, I am still running firearms mods with skill haste because I still want to get my pulse back quicker than I need to. And having firearms with health, it really doesn't make any difference. As you can see, my stamina is actually 1,000 more than the M4 build, and the reason I've done that is because the SMG has such high crit chance, you're going to be doing more damage in general than an AR build, so you can afford to actually spec more into stamina than into firearms, especially if you're running something like the house, which has card counter on there. So that's what I'd recommend, just boosting that stamina up, just up to around the 6,500 mark, and then obviously you get your firearms down. Now, I didn't talk about this with the M4, but my performance mods, like with the M4 build, is pulse critical hit chance. And again, that's important. At 35% native on this particular build, if I go over to my pulse here, again, it's sitting at 15% crit chance, which means when I pulse, I'm actually got 50% crit hit chance on this. So that's really, really strong. I am melting people with this build, and I've got good survivability because my stamina is not low at all. Talents-wise, I am running on the move, I'm running One is None, also running strike back and critical save. The reason I run One is None is because although the headshot modifier is not great in this game, you are still going to do more damage if you hit someone in the head. So I am always trying to hit people in the head to kill them quickly. So that's the reason why I run One is None. But ultimately, the build itself isn't that much different to the M4 build, except for this has not got skill haste really involved. It's more about exotic damage resilience, because you're going to be getting in the faces of your enemies, and you're going to be getting grenaded a lot. And that exotic damage resilience will negate a lot of that. So yeah, there you go, guys. That is my favourite PvP build that doesn't require 6 pieces of classified gear. Lastly, Agents, is my favourite PvE build. Now, I'm not a PvE player, so I apologise if this is not the best PvE build you've ever seen. But this is a skill build, as you'll see. Electronics just over 9,000. We've got a bit of firearms on there just to give me the talents on my augs here. Now, firstly, the weapons of choice here are my augs. They are a score 220. They're low augs, meaning that the requirements to hit the talents are a lot lower, and that's what you're going to need if you're speccing fully into electronics. My main weapon of choice is this aug, which has, this is my DPS aug. This has Destructive, Deadly, and Ferocious. And then on my second org, I've got Responsive, Adept, and Determined. Determined is really good. Obviously, kill and target reduces all skill downs by 7.5%. So that's really, really important. You're going to want to make sure that you are using or equipped your main org here, the one that's got Destructive on it, when you fire your BFB or your Seeker Mines, because that will actually help towards that. The Destructive from that adds towards those particular skills. Now, the build itself, as you can see, is 4-piece Tacticians. We've got Barrett's Bulletproof Chest Piece, and then lastly, we've got a Relentless Backpack. Now, Barrett's Bulletproof, we've got enemy armor damage, skill haste, ammo capacity. Health's not important here because all of the health I'm going to be getting off from my skills. So, enemy armor damage, of course, is very important. The hardest part about actually killing an NPC is taking off their armor in the first place. After that, it becomes a lot easier, so that helps a lot. Skill haste, of course, is very important, meaning that I'll be able to actually get the benefit from the first talent there, giving me the extra 10% skill power. Moving on to the mask here, we've got enemy armor damage, damage to elites, rolled into electronics. Pretty standard there. The Tactician's knee pads, we've got electronics, enemy armor damage, damage to elites on there. Again, very important. Moving on to the Relentless Backpack, as you can see, 5% of the damage dealt by skills is returned as healing. So when I use my BFB or I use my Seeker Mines, I do get a lot of health back. And that's why I don't really roll health anywhere in this particular build. We've got skill power, and then we've got bleed resistance as on that particular backpack there. The gloves, we've got SMG damage, health on kill, and enemy armor damage as well. And then lastly, for the holster, we are running skill haste there, of course. Now, the mods themselves, we've got electronic mods with skill power, skill haste. I haven't really decided at this point what I'm going to be rolling. I mean, I am running 2 firearms mods with damage to elites. I don't know if it's better to run 2 firearms mods with damage to elites or run 5. The reason I run 2 at the moment is just to give me enough for the requirements so that I can unlock Destructive and all the talents on my weapons. But I'm not entirely sure at this point, but from what I can tell at the moment, this has been the best for me. So that's what I'm going with. The performance mods here are sticky bomb damage, and I've got that across all 3 pieces of gear here. Now, if I go over to my character sheet, if we have a look at my skill haste, it's at 33%. It could be a lot higher. If I run skill haste on my mods here, that would put me up at nearly 50%. So that would be pretty strong. Now, if I go over to my abilities here, I am running a BFB with a, as you can see, explosion damage of 1.14 million. And then we've got our Seeker Mines here with 62,000 on them. Moving on to the talents, we've got Triage, which shouldn't be on there, to be completely honest. I will run probably Strike Back on there instead. If you're playing in a group, then Triage is very important. We've got Critical Save. Again, we've got Demolition Expert, giving me that increased damage. And then, of course, we've got Chain Reaction, giving me that increased damage when they're on multiple hostiles, which is most of the time. Now, this, again, is a complete skill build. There are other types of builds, but for me, this is my favourite build because I can solo a lot of legendary missions with this build, and it's a lot of fun to use in general. So, if you've got no idea about skill builds or anything like that, this would be a good place to start. There you go, guys. Hopefully, you did enjoy this video. Just bear in mind that there are so many versatile builds with Ninja Bike. It's pretty crazy, which is why 1.7 was my favourite update, and 1.8 currently is not. But if you have any comments, then leave them in the comments section below. I do read all of my comments. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you're new, and share it with anyone that you think would enjoy this video. Until the next one, Epic out.